and welcome to another episode of the Bella Grace podcast, where we are helping high achievers break free from mindsets, behaviors, and addictions that are holding them back from reaching their true potential. And today we're doing that by sharing a story of a friend of mine from back in the day. We have not spoken in so many years. Her name is Jennifer Barbee. She is 51 years young. She was born in Tampa, Florida, and moved to Texas shortly after that. She is the proud mother of two adult sons and a 13-year-old son. Um, her journey includes experimenting with drugs at the age of 20, and she soon found herself trapped in the grip of addiction for many years. So deeply lost that she once wanted to give up on life. However, Jennifer's story took a remarkable turn, and she has now been clean for 14 years, free from meth and all other drugs and substances. Today, Jennifer is the owner of TMS, a thriving call center that not only provides exceptional services, but also offers second chances to individuals who are struggling with addiction or have felony convictions. Regardless of their past, Jennifer believes that everyone deserves the opportunity to rebuild their lives. TMS currently employs 50 people and specializes in providing health insurance for those under 64, along with group and life leads to agents across the United States. What makes TMS truly remarkable is that it goes beyond just generating leads. It serves as a beacon of hope for those seeking a fresh start. Jennifer's dedication to helping others transform their lives mirrors her own journey, making TMS not just a community, but a second chance to thrive. I'm so excited
Hi,
that you're
how are
here.
you?
Good. Okay, so I am so excited that you're here. I am so proud of you. And so, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today?
Okay. I like you said, I started just recreational drugs when I was about 20. I would do, like X, those kind of things, acid, shrooms. And then I moved to Lubbock. And when I moved to Lubbock, and that's when I started doing meth. I don't think I'd ever even heard of it, didn't know what it was, didn't even know it existed. So I started doing meth, and I really feel like my life just flew by. 12 years later, I was a junkie. I was shooting up. I had track marks all over my arms. And 12 years later, I'd been to jail 23 times. So
Wow.
the last day I was arrested, the 23rd time, I was in Motel 6. They kicked the door in. And I remember when they arrested me that I was looking down at my arms and I was counting how many track marks I had on my arms. And I was like thinking, how did I get here? How did this become my life? Because I truly never believed it could be. I never thought I could get addicted to anything. And I just didn't feel like I would ever be, one of those stories. So I go to jail. And during that time, I found out I was pregnant. And I already had two adult sons. And, by this time, I never saw them. They lived with their dad because I was such a mess. During addiction, you give up everything. You lose all your morals. All you're thinking about is staying ahead of the police or, selling dope and, going to jail and getting out and all that kind of stuff. That just consumes your life. So when I was in jail the 23rd time and I found out I was pregnant, I was like, oh God, I don't want a kid. I don't want another kid. I don't want to go through this. I'm going to resent this child and I don't want him. I remember that's exactly what I thought. So I got out probably 1 month before he was born. And I thought I'm just going to stay clean long enough to give birth and, give him up and then I'll start using again because that's how you think. And the day he was born, I remember I just felt like God passed through me. I felt like he went right through me. And I thought, oh my God, maybe I can do it. I saw his little, curls and his little screams and cries. And I thought, God, this is amazing. Maybe I can do it. So I just started focusing on, okay, I'd only been, at that point, I think I'd been clean like 6 months because I was in jail, not because I wanted to, but because I was in jail. So I then tried to get a job and nobody would hire me. I had 3 felonies and 3 misdemeanors, and no one's going to give you a chance. I would even go to interviews and say, look, I'm doing good. I'm clean. I know I have a bunch of felonies, but I'm, doing what I'm supposed to. Just give me a chance. No one would. I went to McDonald's, wouldn't even give me an interview. I tried so many places and I was so discouraged. And that just makes you want to start using again because I had $36,000 in child support to pay. I was stressed on getting a job. I didn't know how I was going to support this baby. So I felt lost. So anyway, I met probation, like a counseling session. And I remember some girl was like, there's this call center that'll give felons a shot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where? So she gives me the address. And at this point, I literally have had no job for so long that I'm having to go and do Goodwill and for free just to stay out of jail because, as part of my probation if I didn't get a job. So I'd go do Goodwill for like 8 hours free. It was miserable. And so I go to the call center and I get a job and I'm just ecstatic. I'm literally not even making that much money, but $8 an hour or something, 7.25. So I just started making it my new passion. I would come in every day. I would come early. I would stay late. I just worked hard. So finally, the boss says, the man that owns the company, Chris Wilson, he says, well, do you want to start answering the phones? And I'm like, yes, anything, because at this time I'm a telemarketer. So I start answering the phones. And then he would say, well, Jennifer, do you know Excel? And I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I would say, yes, fake it till you make it. If if you're going to get ahead, you're going to have to. So I'd go home and I'd Google, like how to do Excel or how to do Word, stuff like that. And then one day he says, well, my wife and I want to go to Hawaii for a few weeks. Can you do payroll if I teach you how to do it in QuickBooks? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I feel like I didn't sleep for a whole week because I was so scared I was going to screw up payroll. So I do payroll. And it just got to where he would add more and more stuff, and I sort of just became his assistant, anything he needed. If he went out of town, I'd come in and dust his office. I just did anything that needed to be done. And I didn't care what it took. If I had to stay late, if I had to come in on a weekend, I didn't care. I was going to do it. So after 10 years, he decides he's going to sell the company and I was able to buy it. And I became the owner of TMS. So now we've been in business, I've owned the company 2.5 years, but he had owned it since 1999. So we've been in business 25 years now. So literally we just started training and going over, all the things I need to do when I became a business owner. So probably for about 2 years, we trained on everything and no one really even knew, that I was about to take over. So it was pretty amazing. Once I did take over, I thought I'm just going to make it my mission to give others a second chance. So if anybody like myself, is struggling to find a job or has, or they're a felon or they're just getting out of prison and no one's going to give them a chance, I decided to make it my mission that I would. So we've actually gone on, like the news center in Lubbock, and they published the story. And it was amazing how many people called us once that story went out. People were calling and saying, oh my gosh, my kid's in prison. Like you're giving me hope, or my kid's on the run, or my sister's struggling with addiction and maybe she can get clean, So it's just amazing how many people reached out to us and crying and everything else because it gave them hope, because addiction is every single day in so many people's lives. And it was just amazing. And so I don't know, I just became so passionate about it because now I've been clean 14 years and it is hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I always say too, when you're struggling with addiction, Once you reached halt, which is hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, you'll get clean. And you still don't even know how to get out of it. I remember it was Thanksgiving right before I got clean, and I had no electricity. I had no car. I was cold and I was so hungry. I don't even know if I knew it was Thanksgiving. I don't think I had minutes on my phone. And I remember thinking, if I can just get a few dollars, I can go to the dollar menu at McDonald's. And I couldn't even find a few dollars. And it's sad that it got that bad, but that's how it was. And I was there. I had reached my halt, but I didn't know how to get out of it. So I feel like God brought me a child, and he became my new obsession. He says all the time, "Why are you so obsessed with me?" And I'm like, "Oh, you're welcome." Finally, I know how to be a good mother. Finally, I can have money saved and be responsible, come to work every day. So I don't know. That's my story, but it's just pretty amazing now. So we always say we're the number one leads in the nation for the call center TMS. And it's true. I mean, now we're actually the only call center that does telemarketed leads anywhere in the United States for health under 64 and life and group. So it's amazing too that not only are we pulling these leads, but we also are helping people stay clean. People in halfway houses come straight to us. We go to prison job fairs. We don't care. We don't care what anyone's done. We just want to help them try to stay clean and have a job along the way.
Yeah. That's It's amazing. It is
Thank
truly
you.
amazing what you're doing. And you were talking about all these things, and it brings up so much for myself because we were in that life together. We kind
Mhm.
of ran in the same crowd. Um, and a lot of what you shared brings up emotions and feelings that I hadn't like thought about in a long time. You have 14 years sober. I have 20 years sober from meth. I have 5 years sober from alcohol, and alcohol was never like meth was for me. Meth was an all encompassing, it took over everything. Like you said, like it just takes over. And I think it doesn't have to be meth, whatever your drug of choice is, when
There can
it
be
gets,
gamblers, like
yes,
a gambling addiction. There's so many addictions. It doesn't even have to be drugs, but if it's an addiction for that person, they have to. For example, my assistant, has smoked cigarettes for 40 years. That was the hardest thing in the world for her to, she struggles, breathing and stuff because she smoked so long. And so one day I'm like, she's coughing and she can't breathe very well. And I'm like, let's buy you the gum. And now she says that's her clean date off cigarettes, but that was her addiction, was cigarettes. So it can be anything.
yeah, it can be anything. And it can pull you down so far. And you were talking about how when you got your job, you were making like $7 an hour. And you were so thankful for that job. Like you poured everything that you had into it. And I just think of all the other people out there who are at the beginning of their journey with recovery. And if you are like us, because I'm like you, I have felonies and several misdemeanors, and we have risen above, right? We have found a way. And I think it's so important what you're doing and for us to continue to share our stories to show other people that there is a way out and that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I was making $2.15 an hour as a truck stop waitress, my first job out of jail, because it was the only job that I could find that would hire me with
Hmm.
a criminal history. I probably still looked like a junkie. Like I still because like you, I got sober in jail. It wasn't a choice. It was, hey, you got arrested and you're stuck here for a few months. So you got no choice but to get sober. And I know that's the story for a lot of people. And I think it's
Like
important.
too, I do feel like a lot of people end up relapsing and going right back to that life because they have so many obstacles. The world has created these obstacles. They can't get an apartment. They can't vote. They can't, like it's just a lot of obstacles you have to overcome to get to be normal in society. And it's sort of not fair. If we get clean, we should have more, they should work with us more, but they don't. Like now it's not a big deal because I've been clean 14 years and I don't feel like it affects me as much. But at the beginning, I couldn't, it's hard to find a place to live. No one wants to give you a chance.
Yeah. So, what are some things that you would tell someone who is freshly clean, freshly in that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to stay sober this time. This time is the last time I'm going to stay sober this time. And they're facing those obstacles.
I would say for one thing, get a job because for me, that's what helped. Getting a job, even though, and I didn't even make much at the beginning because I owed so much on child support. I owed $36,000. So even if I was making $8 or $9 an hour, half of my paycheck for, 37, 40 hours went to the child support. And it was hard, and finally my dad and my brother, they were like, oh, okay, you're going to get clean, so we'll help you. And they would send me money and I would put all of it toward the child support. And I paid that child support off in 2 years. So that was really nice because finally my family was giving me a chance and believing in me again. But I would say for these, people that are straight out of prison or they have a felony and they're trying to overcome these obstacles, be honest with people. If you try to hide it, they're not going to give you a chance if they find out. I was honest and still not everyone's going to give you a chance. But I think I would much rather somebody be honest with me about it than to try to hide it, say I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, give me a chance, I'll do great. Because to me, my employees, they work harder than anyone. I have 50 employees and I feel like they're so loyal to me. They're so good to me and they work their butts off out there because they don't have as many options as other people. And I've set it up too with TMS to where you're not just stuck at a certain, base pay. They get bonuses according to their production. So that really, it makes it more fun for them. We put them in teams, they do contests, but I would say for people struggling too, for like us in Lubbock, we have so many connections now. And, if some of my employees are doing good and they're looking for housing, we have landlords that'll take them. They don't care what they've done. If I put in a good word, then they'll go ahead and give them a chance or give them a house or an apartment. We work with all these halfway houses, and we also work with like federal dismiss, which they can call anytime they want. They can come up here and make sure, my employee is doing what they're supposed to. And believe it or not, they're out of prison and they're out of jail and they're excited to get to, be back in the free world and do what they're supposed to. I mean, yeah, they wear ankle monitors and all that kind of stuff, but for the most part, they'll do what they're supposed to because they're giving, they're getting a chance again. So it's nice too here at the call center where almost every single person here is in recovery. So it's like we all get it. We understand how hard it is.
Yeah, and that's beautiful because community is such a huge part of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I always tell my clients, I'm like, it is really hard to get and stay sober alone
Yes.
because we were unhealthy, we were sick, we were addicted in community, especially if it's a drug like meth.
I feel like too, it helps that, I'm an addict and I get how hard it is and what a struggle it is. I have employees come in every day, I'm struggling, I'm thinking about using. If you've never used, you're never going to get it. You're never going to understand why are they struggling. Just don't do it. It's that simple. It's not that simple. It's you have to retrain your way of thinking. You have to recondition every aspect of your life, not to hang around the same friends, not to do the same things you did, before, because you will think about it. They have a hard day, they think about it. And there's so many new drugs now that I have to be on top of my game. I've had to learn all about Suboxone because, that's such a big deal lately, so. And then another thing too is I feel like people think, oh, I'm clean off meth. Let me take some pain pills for this surgery or something. You get addicted to something new, you
Yeah.
know? like for you, it sounds like you got off meth and then you later drank alcohol. You know, that became a new addiction for you somewhere, or you probably wouldn't have a clean date off alcohol.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'd been clean for what, about 15
15 years.
years, and
Uh-huh.
I always tell people, like, I used to drink socially after I got sober off meth. Like, it was never a crutch for me, right? Like, I was like, okay, well, I'll have a beer with family here, or I'll have a margarita with family there, whatever. It was never a big deal. But I started really struggling in life, and I'm educated in this. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in addiction. Like, this is what I do for a living. And in about January of 2020, when the pandemic, I was working for a global company. So one of my clients was in China, in Wuhan, actually. And so we were getting like information about how COVID was taking off and how things were starting to shut down. My job was super stressful. My husband and I would have a glass of wine at night. Like, it started very innocently,
Simple.
simple, very simple. It was
That's
just
how
like,
all addictions start.
yeah,
You just don't think it's going to be a big deal, and then somewhere it
it
happens.
just clicks. Yeah, my stepson died. And that was what sent me over the edge. It went from a glass of wine while we watched TV to suddenly we're drinking 2 bottles between the two of us, or 3 bottles between the two of us every single night.
Mm.
And it was like that grief triggered me into my old behavior patterns of using a substance to cope with something that felt too heavy. And that lasted from March until August.
Mm.
And in August, I was like, what am I doing? I am not going down this path again. I'm done drinking. And so now I just don't drink at all. So I'm like, yeah, I think it's important to help, especially baby people, like baby recovering addicts, like, they're very new, to understand that. Because when I first got sober, I didn't necessarily have anybody telling me that you should stay sober from everything. And it had been so far, I was so far removed from myself 15 years prior that it didn't even like dawn on me
Yeah.
that this could become an issue.
Feel like we're addicts and we have to be like pain pills. Oh my gosh. I feel like
Yeah.
I'm so cautious, even if I were to have a surgery. I had a surgery, many years ago, and I only took 4 pain pills because I was scared. I know I'll become addicted to it. I don't even have any doubts about it. So you have to just be more cautious about all that kind of stuff than, right, people that have never been addicted to stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you do, I'm sure you do, but do you have like ongoing support for your employees as they're going through their recovery journey?
I feel like we are their support, the staffers and all of us, anytime they're struggling, it's an open door. They can come in here and say, look, or I'm on this and I'm trying to not be, they can tell me anything they want. And, I'll try to work with them. Even if they say, look, I relapsed this weekend, and I'm like, you cannot, don't sit and dwell about it. You've got to just pick yourself back up and get clean again. Yeah, I know it's hard. Yeah, you've been clean 5 years and you relapsed, but don't fall back into it and waste another 2 or 3 years and then have to pull yourself back out, because it would be hard. It doesn't matter if they relapse, you can get back to being sober right away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that has the potential to hang people up. I always tell people I probably relapsed 200 times before it actually stuck. And that's okay. All that matters is that I kept going.
Mm-hmm. Don't,
And
and I feel like that's what happens too. They get down on themselves, like, oh, I relapsed, and I know where, they just fall back into it. Don't do that. Just pick yourself. It doesn't matter. Pick yourself right back up and start again. Like you can't dwell on it. But I think when people aren't ready, it's part of it. They have to hit that hungry, angry, lonely, and tired before they're ready to give up. When I see the mug shots here in Lubbock, I see people, and when I see, possession of a gram, I think, God, they're going to have to get arrested probably 20 times, get a few felonies. They have to go hit rock bottom before they're ready to stop. And it's sad, but that's how it works. It hardly ever, I think, do people just get in trouble once and say, okay, I'm ready to stop, because it doesn't work that way. It's so powerful that, I mean, they're going to go through so much before they finally give in. Usually it's 10, 15 years of using, and they've lost
Mhm.
everything along the way.
Yeah, yeah. And I think too, you mentioned you mentioned how he asked if you know how knew how to use Excel.
Yeah.
You were like, fake it till you make it. Fake it till you I laughed because fake it till you make it was my mantra when I was
During
first.
recovery.
Yes,
Yes,
it's
I agree.
yeah.
Another thing I was going to tell you is I still have relapse dreams. It's that powerful. And I will wake up and be like, oh my God, oh my God, and I'm like so mad at myself. And I'm like, wait, I didn't even go out last night. I didn't do anything. But it'll upset you. It feels like it really happened. Or I'll have a dream like the cops are running in and I'm throwing everything in the toilet, or I'm running, because we're getting raided. That's such a sad life that I lived, but I did it, and now I still have dreams. They're not as frequent, but I still have them. And I wake up and I feel guilty all day. And I'm like, stop. I never even go out anymore. My life's totally different. I will literally Google everything like, oh, if I took an allergy pill 3 hours ago, can I, I'm just silly about everything I take now. And then I just would take anything. Oh yeah, give me that pill. But now there's so many things too we've got to be aware of. Like my kid, I tell him yesterday, one pill can kill. Don't take any pills, because there's fentanyl. And it's scary when you think about that never existed when I did drugs. Thank goodness, or I'm sure I would have taken it because I never put thought into anything then.
I know. I literally just had this conversation with my daughter um and her friend because we went to an EDM show
Mm,
and yeah, and we've been taking her to festivals since she was like 12, 13 years old
hmm
because we wanted to expose her. She loves live music, she loves dancing. So we wanted to make sure that she knew how to stay hydrated.
That's good.
Knew how to navigate those sorts of situations on her own, like knowing where the information tent is, knowing where the food stuff is, like how to read a festival map, like
And be safe.
and be safe, be self-aware enough to know that there are pickpockets, that there are people, like just paying attention to your surroundings. So we've literally been training her to leave our house since she was itty bitty.
How old is she?
She's 18. She'll be going to
Okay.
college in August. And so she's um like she and I've been really open and honest with her about my own journey with drugs. And like her and all of her friends follow me on Instagram. They listen to my podcast. Like, we're just very open about my journey.
That's how I am with Cameron too. In
Yeah.
fact, he says, how many times would you have gone to jail probably if you hadn't gotten pregnant with me? And I was like, I would have probably been dead by now,
Yeah.
and I feel like letting him know that too. Well, I don't want him to make the same mistakes as I do. I don't want him to be able, not be able to get a job later in life. And that's all it takes is trying drugs one time and you could be there. So I
Yeah.
feel like the more we dwell it into their head, they'll know.
Sorry, my dog started barking.
Ah.
But yes, and I tell her and her friends all the time. I'm like, when we were partying,
Mhm.
we when I was going to the clubs and doing club drugs and all that, like we did have a rule, like you don't take drugs from anybody that you didn't come with. Which is a stupid rule, but it is the
I
rule.
didn't even have that rule. I was be like, oh, a pill? Yeah.
See, we were very
Sure.
protective of each other. Like we were very protective. But I tell her now, I'm like, you can't even like share a joint with somebody at a festival because it might be laced with fentanyl.
Yeah.
And it is a scary world.
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart because I feel like we didn't have it easy. we were using, I think, during the height of meth. Like that was a huge time period for meth. And right now, I feel like it is fentanyl.
Mhm.
And it's so scary because yes, we probably killed our bodies with the substances that, like, we probably did some severe damage to our internal organs. But we weren't gonna die from one hit like
Mhm.
some of the kids could now with fentanyl. Like it
Yeah.
one pill kills, like you were saying. And so do you feel like you see um is your, like, your employee base, the people that come to you, are they on the younger spectrum or the older spectrum? Or is it
I would
all
say
over?
I would say the older spectrum, but I would also say there's some days I talk about drugs so much with my employees because there's so much happening and I think, "Oh God, am I thinking about using?" And it freaks me out. And I literally it happens occasionally. I mean, it happens more than I care to admit sometimes. So I have to literally go home and pray, just I'm grateful to be sober. God is the only reason that I am sober because he literally, I couldn't do it without him. And have to go home and pray and then go to sleep because I don't want to think about it. And I wake up and I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fine. But there's some days I think about it because I'm literally counseling people not to use, or why did you use, or, why are you selling this? There's so many things that could occur. And sometimes it wears me out a little bit. But
Yeah.
I would say a lot of the people, a lot of employees are from halfway houses, so they live together, and I don't know, I feel like that they have a lot of support with each other. They bring a van of people that live in these halfway houses that come here. And even Brad, the guy that drives the van, we used to run in the same circle, so he's been clean like 16 years. So we all just pull together, and I feel like as a unit and try to help each other stay clean and safe. And when someone does relapse and they go back out on the streets, it's heartbreaking. It happens a lot, and it's hard but I get so mad. It's their decision. Only they can say no. We can't say no for them. Only they can want it. We can't want it for them.
Yeah, you were talking about the calls that you have gotten from people after the story aired, and it's moms, sisters, everybody like
So
wanting,
many people.
yeah. And I don't know if you can hear my dog barking. My
I
dog, okay, good. She thinks nobody is allowed to walk by the house. So but anyway, you were saying that you got an influx of calls from loved ones who wanted their loved one to get sober. I feel like there's hope. And something that I always share is we can't drag anyone across the finish line. It has to be because they want it.
Right. The day after we ran our story, we got up to like 67 employees, which, whew, that was a lot. It wore me out. I would say 50 is a good number for us, but yeah, we got to 67. But even like some man stopped by and with tears in his eyes, thank you for doing that story. I mean, it looked like something out of a movie. So many people called. My cell phone was ringing, the office phone was ringing. Everything was ringing because so many people were like, I saw your story and it touched me. Maybe my kid who's on the run, maybe would you be willing to give him a job if we find him? Yes, absolutely. It just was amazing how many people it touched. And if it gave them hope, that's all that matters, because I remember I needed hope. I couldn't figure out how to get out of it. And I
Yeah.
really, at that point, I was ready to die. I was tired of trying because it wasn't happening. And I'm like you, I would get clean for 3 or 4 days and then I'd go right back into it because your body just needs it. You don't know how to be without it.
Yeah. So, what are some things that you would say to someone who is stuck in that relapse cycle, like you, wants to give up, but
I don't think they can do it on their own. I remember thinking, "Oh, I can do it on my own." I'm just going to say no, you can't. It's I don't want to say it's impossible, but it hardly ever happens. I would say you're going to definitely have to check yourself into some type of rehab. Then they'll help you. Even when I went into rehab, I was going to be there 3 months and I was like rushing because I wanted to get out. You need to actually work the process. I don't go to AA and all that. I just had to get out and realize I can't be friends with the same people. I can't hang out with people that are using anymore. I don't ever take those chances. If I even know that someone's relapsed or they mess around with a dabble in it, I won't go around them because I can't take those chances. And that was hard, but for me, I really feel like if they're going to get clean, they have to go to some type of rehab to help them stay clean and learn how to do life without drugs. You're going to have to learn to recondition everything about your way of thinking. This is silly, but when I first got clean, I thought I'm never going to want to clean like my house or my office or anything, because that's what I would do when I get high, is clean. That's what I love doing. And it took many, many months before I was like, oh, okay, I'll get up and try to clean. It doesn't really seem fun anymore, but now I love cleaning. Like it's my fun little thing, and it makes me feel good. But it took a lot of reconditioning my mind to make myself want to start cleaning my house again or organize my room or rearrange or something. So you can do it. It's all about reconditioning your way of thinking.
Yeah. And yeah, you touched on this, but when you get sober, you are literally the age mentally that you were when you started using.
Yes.
And giving yourself some grace for that, like
Yeah.
understanding that you might be behind the curve, behind the ball, but compared to your peers, other people your age, but you had a setback.
Mm-hmm.
When your peers, friends were out going to college or starting their careers or furthering themselves in whatever way, you were stunted for
Mm-hmm.
however many years it was that you were using. And you're not going to get sober and immediately be caught up with everybody else and
Yeah.
where they are in life. And
Mm.
so it does take giving yourself grace and saying, I am okay because I'm sober and I am working towards where I want to be in life, but really understanding that it sucks.
I
It,
feel like too, you have to stop being so hard on yourself once you
Mhm.
finally get clean. Because for me, I was working on my thesis for my bachelor's, and then I got my first felony. I'd gone to school 4 years, and I was like, oh, who cares now? It's not going to happen. And I dropped out of school. And, there's times I do regret that, but now I own the company and, I'm doing really good today. But it was hard because there were so many times I was so mad at myself, but I tell my kid all the time, don't make those mistakes. You don't want to not be able to get the degree you want, or be able to live where you want, have a good credit score. There's so many things you don't think about until you get clean. My credit score was like 4 something. I couldn't get approved for anything, and now it's 800, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. But I don't even think I knew what a credit score meant then. I was such a mess. So I do feel like, that's important too, to not be so hard on yourself when you get clean. There's going to be so many things. You've got to start fresh and you're right, give yourself grace. There's times I really feel like I'm 40, but it's because I lost 12 years of my life to doing drugs.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it'll keep you feeling young for longer.
I'm smarter now. That's what matters.
That is what matters. And so I think what you're doing is you're really giving hope, and you are a light in Lubbock. And I think I read somewhere where you're wanting to expand beyond Lubbock. Is that right?
I don't know. We have a lot of employees. Plus, anyone I hire can work from home. It's more getting them trained and all that kind of stuff. But recently, though, we were in an International Business Times. So that was pretty neat because that's a story that's digital online. It's 55 million viewers a month, and it's globally and in 4 languages. So when they reached out to me from London and wanted me to do the story, I was like, oh gosh, I'm not sure if I should. And then after doing it, and then they wrote the article, it was so amazing. And I cried the whole time the man was reading the article to me because it's powerful. It's everywhere. It's not just in the United States. There's drugs everywhere, and it affects in every family in some way or another eventually. So it is amazing. And I feel like there's not many times I can talk about my recovery and not cry because it's powerful. And I'm just glad to be out alive and turning it into a success now. You know, my kid says all the time, do you wish you had never done drugs? I do wish I'd never done them, but I feel like it did make me who I am. And now I can, you know, I've got the call center and I can help others that I know they're struggling and how hard it can be. Because it just gives them hope, a little bit of hope, and they need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Wow. Very powerful. Very
thank
powerful. And I think that's really important. You said, do you regret doing drugs? Like, it has shaped us into who we are today.
mm-hmm.
If I showed past Teresa and Jennifer a picture of us doing this right now, I never would have believed it. Never.
I agree. But also too, I feel like because of our past, maybe we can save our kids from never going down that path. You know, like I feel like I'm very strict on my kid when it comes to this kind of stuff because I just don't want him to, you know, I didn't know what a felony was when I was 13, but my kid does because we go over it all the time, you know, like the things he shouldn't do because I don't want him to make the same mistakes I did. This was a really hard life, especially for many years when I first got clean. I don't want him to ever have to go through that. So I feel like because of our paths, we'll be more protective of our children and, hope, in hopes they never go through this.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And I think what you're doing is going to make such a huge impact. Like what you do for your kid, the way that you are educating your son, the way that I'm educating my daughter, you are creating that space and making that possible for all of the people who work at your call center.
Mm. It also just accepts them because another thing too is people aren't accepting of it. They're not accepting if you have a felony or if you've had a drug history. They don't trust you, and that's just the hard facts of it. For me, I don't care. And I call like one of my employees the other day, I call him in my office, and he goes into the story. I'm like, tell me your story. He goes right into, the horrible things that he's done. I don't care because at least he's honest with me. We think differently when we're clean anyway. He says all the time, he says, I give him the credit card to go buy something for the company. He's like, oh, you wouldn't want to give me this credit card if I was using. That's true. Everyone's so different when they're using. It's not even the same person. So it's just amazing to get to see all of my employees. I feel like I love every one of them. It's amazing to get to see how good they're doing because they're clean and sober. Watching them get a car, their apartment, getting their kids back. There's so much damage we've done over the years when we do drugs that when they finally get clean and sober, getting to have money in your savings account. It's just an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you to leave the listeners with a few little tidbits. What would you say to someone who is still in active recovery? What would you say to someone who is freshly starting their recovery journey? And what would you say to someone who is a seasoned in recovery?
I feel like support. That's the main thing. You have to change all your friends and find friends like we have in the call center. We're all in recovery together, and it's like we're one big family. And we're going to help each other. My floor supervisor, Kristen, she's one of my favorite people too. She's quick to call people out. I think I think they've relapsed, and we call them in here like, look, have you? Half the time they say no. And I'm like, you could have caught me with a pipe in my hand. I would have said it wasn't mine. I don't believe you because of your actions. So it's important. You need to sometimes have people around you that care, that are going to call you out on it and help you figure out this. This is going to be if once you get clean, it'll be the best decision you've ever made, but it's also going to be the hardest thing you've ever done. Absolutely the hardest. And a lot of people do give up or they do OD along the way. And it's sad. You just need people that understand what you're going through and that have gone through it and can help you stay strong. It is literally one day at a time because I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I owed $36,000 on child support. I can't find a job. I barely can afford to support this kid. I don't know what to do. but I just started focusing today. Okay, today, just go out and try to find a job. Don't think about that child support. Don't think about all the other things that are, bills that are piling up, or you don't have money for diapers. Just focus on today. Then the next day would come, focus on today, but go ahead in your mind, think about what you're going to do today. What's on your schedule? So when they say it's one day at a time, it literally is. If you think about what all the obstacles you're about to have to overcome because you get clean, it's going to make you relapse again because it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know when I was very, very, very freshly sober, I had to take it literally hour by hour. I couldn't even
I get
think of
that. Yeah.
the entire day. I had to take it hour by hour because the chances of me making it through this hour without using, because I lived in the trailer park where I also used.
Oh
So
gosh.
yeah. So literally like down the street, around the corner, around this corner were people that I used with, people that I could buy from. Like it was everywhere. So
Yeah.
even going to the mailbox was hard. Like
Mhm.
because normally I'd go check the mail and then go around the corner and go hang out and party and use all day.
Right. I literally
So
tell my employees too, you just have to get through today. Don't use today. That's all you need to think about. Don't use, and then go to sleep early when you get home. If you're struggling, go to sleep. It doesn't matter when you're sleeping, you're not going to think about it. Wake up and focus on the next day. Don't use the next day. So it's literally one day at a time. But I would say, like you said, finding the best support, because that's going to be the hardest. You can't go back to your old ways of hanging out with different people, or you're going to have to, for me, the hardest part was not having friends anymore, not having 50 people at my house at all times. I literally had to not have any friends for a while and focus on me, get clean and sober, and focus on my child and my job. And that's where I became so obsessed with it. Find a new addiction, a healthy one. Working
mhm.
out, there's a healthy addiction. Watching Netflix, it's fine. That could be a new addiction. It doesn't matter. As I just said, coffee. Coffee's my new addiction sometimes, but it's okay. It's a healthy one. You've got to replace that addiction with something new. For me, I did start working out a lot, and I didn't really want to, but that's a new addiction right there.
Yeah. Yeah, for me mine was church. I started going to church religiously. Like
That's good.
every time the doors were open, I was there.
See, yeah, you just have to replace it with a new addiction that's healthy.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Okay. Well, got anything else for us? Any last little tidbits or anything?
No, thank you for having me on your podcast today. It's my first podcast and I loved it.
Yes, yay. I'm so glad. And I truly, truly think what you're doing is amazing. And I think there is no better place than Lubbock for you to be. I think Lubbock really needs an awakening and a beacon of hope. And I think that's what you're providing. So
Thank you.
thank you
All
for
right.
being
Bye.
on. Okay,
Thank you. Have a good
bye.
day.
You too.